I looked at the building, it looked to be an ordinary constructed, I would have guessed somewhere between the years 1950s, late 40s, 50s perhaps. And I was looking at one side of it, and there was a large amount of fire on the back. Now, I hadn't gone around to the back at that point. And when I say a large amount of fire, it looked to me that the fire was concentrated on the back.
One of the things when we first got there and noticed was heavy fire coming from the building, mostly in the rear. And in sizing up the building, noticed that there were some unique characteristics about that occupancy. One of them being that the street level was different from the level of the actual back of the lot. It was actually a two-story building, but from the front, if just looking at the building, you weren't really able to tell.
And our initial assignment was to set up for water pipe operations, which we started to do. We knew that there was an interior attack going on as well. We could see the line going through the front door of the glass shop.
As we pulled up on the scene, I visualized the building fire, which was commercial, pretty well involved with fire. Our initial assignment was to set up our ladder pipe for a defensive operation, and we proceeded with our operation and waited for a water supply.
But what was unusual about this building, as so often happens, add-ons that you just have no idea about. It did turn out to be there was an old Queen Anne style house attached to the back of these commercial buildings. That in itself is extremely unusual.
Well, initially on the way up there, we could see some pretty heavy smoke from probably halfway between 20s and 28, so we knew we had a good fire, whatever it was. When we got there, it was commercial, some type of commercial fire. And it was my truck day, so I was assigned to the truck company. I was actually kind of excited in a way. You know, we had some fire, and our assignment was to set up the ladder pipe for a defensive operation.
In the back portion of it, we had lots of fire. You can see fire all the way through the roof and everything in the back. So I was under the assumption that there was fire in a warehouse portion of the structure. At that time, Chief Page said he was going to assign in EST 59, my crew, and that also Engine 25's crew was going to be assigned to interior. He also told me at that time, no heroics, and I said, no problem, Chief, I just anticipate on stopping the fire from entering the showroom portion of the glass shop.
It has ordered our team to offload the RIC equipment in front of the building, and then I took myself and Firefighter Fry into with the thermal and basically started a basic structural triage. At that time we entered the street side of the building and started doing thermal readings, and basically I was just looking around, seeing how the structure was intact, what the fire conditions were, and at that time there was hardly any activity at all in the front of this building during that process.
We started advancing our hose lines approximately 20 to 30 feet through the structure, and there was a door. We exited the door, which I was under the assumption was going into the warehouse portion of the structure. At that time, once we opened the door, there was a tremendous amount of fire and smoke, so we were using the hand lines and knocking fire down and advancing the hand lines. It was kind of an odd feeling. Something just didn't look quite right when I went in there. Just off to my left, and the next instant the floor just collapsed underneath me right where I was standing. I fell to approximately chest height right about here. When I fell, I felt an extreme tremendous amount of heat on my lower back and my lower extremities. My first thoughts were, this is not good. And when I first fell, it pushed my air bottle up from behind, pushed my helmet and my mask off. I was getting a tremendous amount of heat and fire coming up out of the hole in my face at that time. I was trying to push myself up, and I was wedged in. I had fallen actually between the floor joists. Engine 25's crew apparently came up behind me, saw that I was trapped, and I heard them get on the radio and request emergency traffic and that we had a firefighter down.
Radios, I heard emergency traffic. When that call came out, I can only tell anyone who's ever been in a seat of command the terror that fills you.
At that time, we were on the turntable of the truck and just were kind of dumbfounded by the actual call for, firefighter down. Never experienced that before and was pretty much in shock at that time.
Okay, after we started our initial thermal image inside the building, the glass shop, is when the call came down that we received emergency traffic over the radio, firefighter down to the rear of the building.
When I was hanging there, I truly thought that I was going to perish, burned to death while I was hanging there, and it was pretty terrifying thoughts. I think I was starting to lose some consciousness from the amount of smoke that I was inhaling at that time. I do not remember falling into the basement, dropping down into the basement. I do have some memories of being in the basement.
What we see when we get to the rear of the building is a lot of fire activity. Probably fire standing tall, about 30, 40-foot flame lengths, full involved, heavy hose appliances going off the stings, off the rigs, a lot of firefighting going on. I went to the engine 40s captain. I said, hey, we have a firefighter down back here. And nope, I checked engine 15s. Nope, nobody was down. Nobody was reporting anybody. And I said, crap, it's got to be to the front of the building. And at that time, there was another report that we had firefighter down was in the front of the building, which kind of upset me at that moment because we wasted all this time from the front of the building. And I said, we were just inside that thing, which really upset me. All the hose lines led from the street into that small opening into the building. So that's the determination, that's where we're going to go and make our way inside. Got to the end of the hose line, and that's where I found one firefighter screaming and yelling that his fire captain was down. And at that time, there was a lot of confusion, and then what was going on at the same time is we had heavy streams pushing that fire into us because there was no ventilation in front of the building. It was still all the glass had not been blown out. Nothing had been done to open that front end, which normally you wouldn't have that because the conditions didn't seem like that needed to be done at that moment. But then I knew what was happening is that smoke and fire was being pushed at us, and it was banking up from the front of the building and coming back at us and then rolling down, basically almost like a mushroom effect, which started changing the conditions of the fire at that time. Well, the fireman kept screaming, not screaming, yelling, just real emotional about it. So I wound up grabbing him. I said, you have to get out of here. Let us do what we need to do. So basically I grabbed him and forced him behind me. And that's when we kind of bent down. I think Firefighter Fry was there. Firefighter Specialist Leo was with me, Barra, and we were looking down there. Fire smoke coming out of the hole, and basically we saw is the LED light from his BA is what the first indication that we located.
I had a flashlight, but there was some light in there, but really it was so dark and there was enough steam and smoke that were coming out of the hole, it was really difficult to see. The only thing that I saw when I peered through the hole was the green LED light coming off of his pass device. Because of the noise and all the companies operating and everything else, it was really difficult to determine any noise whatsoever. I never heard the pass device.
We used the hose line at the end of where the firefighter went down at that time. We used the hose line to protect the firefighter down. That was my first priority, is we put it in a fog pattern and put it over his area. We could see where his LED and flood there, kept it on fog. And basically, periodically, we take the nozzle and bend it back underneath us and try and knock some of the flame down that was burning underneath us on the floor area, the subfloor. And basically, that was our job. I was going to keep we located them. At that time, I told Kevin Fry, my firefighter, to get a chainsaw, bring it back in because we were limited amount of tools that each guy can carry in.
At that point, the smoke was so heavy you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. It was just basically we were going by sound and so forth of the firefighters.
Once I brought the chainsaw back inside and began to cut on the floor, there was so much smoke and steam that the air filter on the chainsaw was not able to filter out enough of the smoke, and the chainsaw began to basically choke itself out.
We soon heard that they were having trouble with their saws. So at that point, I knew we had saws on the truck and that we may be called to use it. And sure enough, we were, by the IC, assigned to take our saws into the RIC team, which was USAR 103.
We got a call from the IC to respond with the RIC team, and the RIC team had requested chainsaws at that time.
When Firefighter Fry chainsaw started cutting out on us, we had to go to Axis, try and open this up. I turned around and I grabbed Firefighter Specialist Barra by his turnouts, and I yelled out through our mask. At that time we had the old Survive Air, so your voice box doesn't work as well as the new Panthers. And I told him, find another way in, see if you can find another way to gain access into Gary.
Couldn't get out of it, so I started trying to find my radio. I wanted to get on the blue radio and communicate with LA Dispatch that I was in the basement, that I needed some air, that I couldn't breathe, and that I was burning down there. I could not find my blue radio. At that time, I took my glove off and I was feeling it around, and I got my white radio. At that time, I got on the white radio and I just told whoever, hopefully somebody was listening, I said, wet me down, I'm burning down here.
Don at that point said, Leo, take a look, see what we can do, see if you can find another, place to, gain access. Tell you the truth, when I got up onto my feet, I said, I don't know how we're going to get them out. Cramped quarters, the floor was very spongy, to say the least. That was another concern, and we weren't making any headway in the fire. I mean, thick smoke. I wasn't sure whether or not we were going to be able to get them out, or if we were going to make it out. I looked directly down below and I noticed that there was this window opening. There isn't any glass on it, but on the interior of the window there was a wooden pellet. I made several attempts to kick it, I guess, through, but I was unsuccessful. It was nailed shut.
I could see a firefighter waving to us. He was probably about another 20 or 30 feet away from us, but he was actually below the level where we were. I thought that was kind of odd. So I approached to where he was, and there was no stairs and just this lower level, so we just proceeded to jump down into this level.
When we got down in there, Leo was pointing at some there was two boarded up windows, and Leo was pointing at one of them. And John, firefighter Creasy, went ahead and fired up the saw, made a cut, and when he made his cut, that's as soon as the board was out of the way, Leo and I were right there, and John was pulling the saw away, and we saw Captain Morgan down in the hole.
I took a hard look around me, and I saw that the fire is actually gaining headway. And if I don't act now, if I don't do something, if I can't find him, it may be too late, maybe for all of us. And at that point, I started thinking about my son, and then I started thinking about Captain Morgan, and it's a thing where, well, what if it was you in there, Leo?